Good afternoon, everyone, and I invite you to listen and to reflect on the things that I'm going to say, because this will have an impact on the projects that we will be doing in the future. Okay. So we can now imagine that there is this person who comes from education, and he wants to make the transition. He wants to make a transition from the education to the labor market. But there is a door that he has to open in order to fully integrate himself in the labor market. And so, my study, labor market-driven learning analytics. So these are the overview of the contents of my talk. So we will discuss the background and motivation. Then we will also discuss the literature review that I did. And then our approach. And then the fourth one is our current work. So this is also an opportunity for me to present to you what we are doing right now. And then our future work, and of course, the references. Okay, so let's start with my background and motivation. So now, figure 1, you will see, this is actually the graph, vacancy versus unemployment. So you can see that this is from the Netherlands. So you see that we have here the number of unemployed individuals in this purple line. And this is the number of vacancy that we have. So wouldn't it be nice if we are going to narrow the gap between vacancy and unemployment? It would not be necessarily be 0% unemployment, but if we can do that, then for us, people are just statistics. But for the individual, it means their life. So we must find a way in order to bridge this gap. And then the second one is person-job misfit. So I have read that person-job misfit is costly for both employees and employers. So this is the problems. Okay, our approach. First, let's have the literature review. So we have educational attainment is an essential determinant of employability. We know that according to, him. And then the second one is people search environments where they can use their skills and abilities and express their values and attitudes, according to these Holland codes. The third one is heterogeneity of jobs and workers. The second one is people have preferences. So we must include preferences of individuals when we try to study education and labor market. Because some people do not really want to work, and some people want to work. And then our approach. So we have here the educational outcomes and the labor market. So what we are trying to do, because I'm working in the field of learning analytics, so most of the effort or researchers in this field concerns about how to improve student learning by using student data. So our approach is, why not we use information from the labor market, channel it through learning analytics in order to improve educational outcomes. So there are a lot of challenges here. The first challenge is what information in the labor market directly affects particular educational outcomes, and how this relationship contributes to the person-job fit. Okay. And then from an individual point of view, because our unit of analysis here is the individual. So you have me and the job environment. So after you finish your education, you obtain skills, competencies, knowledge, preferences. And then what we do is we try to get a match. So how to do this match? We will call the labor market-driven analytics entity. And then we shall make him push the me into job in order to get this match. But the challenge is, how do we measure this match? Because we need to operationalize certain variables, certain features, in order to measure how well the labor market information influence certain educational outcome, and how the educational outcomes influence the person-job fit. So this is the main question. Okay, our current work is review of extant work in learning analytics, and we have also review of extant work in labor market. And then a major finding is this study is the first of its kind. So you may disagree with this, but allow me to convince you that this is the first of its kind. Okay. And then the current work is, we are now in the process of development of developing goal-setting application. And then we are mining academic literature, and then we are also mining job vacancies, and then identify data sources and familiarizing myself to various techniques. The goal-setting application is our solutions because we want to encourage people to set goals, learning goals, so that first, we want to emphasize that people must make goals when one of these goals is to be employed. And one of these goals is to get skills and competencies in order to reach the job of his dream. And then this is the product that we are trying to see. And then identify data sources. We have already from UFA, from Randstad, and from other sources, and then techniques. Okay, so you can just imagine once we have this goal-setting application, so we have this Alice this is from Stefan Moll, that we will try the labor market information will help the individual to set goals and to how to achieve this goal. So I will just read. So Alice logs into her learning dashboard. So you see, okay, I failed the exam last week. I'm disappointed, but going through some personal feedback from lecturer, she now knows that it doesn't affect his anticipated graduation, and then it doesn't change his ability to reach the goal. And then, but the HR consultant job, second choice, is still in the green zone, and the paycheck candidate has turned from orange to red. And then now she carefully checks the recommendations of his advisor. So that's how we imagine the goal-setting application. And then our current work, we are now writing a proposal for the OVA-informed pilot project. And then we have submitted papers to conferences and meetings. And then I attended workshops and summer schools, and I enriched my data mining capability. And for future work, so first, data sources, how to manage the data, then doing some data analytics like data mining, and the development of software applications. One of these is the goal setting. And around these three boxes is the question of ethical considerations about using data, because we're going to use data from education, which involves people, and their labor data. Thank you for your attention.
Who else?
So another thing is we are going to consider how to validate. One of the most important is how to validate the model that we create, because the validation would involve in like tracing the individual from education until he reached the labor market. This may not be possible during the span of my PhD. So what we're trying to do is that for graduates who come from UVA, who recently graduated, we will try to collect data through a survey, then analyze this, what are they doing, what are their performance, their feelings, emotions, to try to trace it back to their education data. And then we can make some form of analysis, like a trajectory mining or a form of a sequence mining.
Just a quick, maybe I'm falling asleep at this stage, but how are you going to collect the data? Using some form of a learning management system, or collecting the data?
Collecting the data so in this case, we are going to use a lot of data. So first, we can use secondary data from one of the partners, like from Randstad. So they have it's a recruitment company. So you have data about people who works for them, and then we trace it back to the education. But this is a difficult task because we face the problem of record linkage. So we cannot really map individual to with certainty. So we might use some form of a probabilistic record linkage. That's one thing. Then another is we try to select the alumni from UFA, send them some survey that they can, or questionnaire in the form, and then trace it back to their education. And another thing is the goal setting application is also a source of data because we allow them to use the goal setting. So one class will use, another one will not use, and then we measure it on the certain educational outcomes that say the grades that they get, or the ability, the number of goals that they set that they have managed to accomplish. So
the UFA has a lot of data on student performance and student behavior. There are 60 plus systems within the university which store data about education. So one thing we are working on at the moment is a so-called learning record store, which will be capable to pull data from all these systems and make it available for researchers within the university, as step number one, for analytics. But as I see, the biggest danger of this project is ethics. Again, ethics, because okay, it's one thing that it won't be easy to couple databases and match data from different databases. But then the big issue is what type of recommendations you give to students. Are you allowed to tell the students, okay, you're never going to make it to the labor market because your data, our predictive model says no way. Are you allowed to say this?
But in the soft approach, we will not tell the students, okay, stop dreaming of being a doctor, instead dream of being a data analyst. But we will make recommendations through the models that we have, that if you still plan, then you can achieve this. But based on your performance, you must consider something like that. So it's not really saying in a hard way, you cannot succeed. Go home.
And
Yeah, I could make this. There is quite some tradition in the Netherlands. It's especially by the Roa Institute from the University of Maastricht, which does each 2 years labor market forecasts, very detailed, for let's say clustered occupations. And it may be interesting, at least, so for example, to go to Rolf van der Velde of Maastricht to see what you can combine with them. And this is high esteemed. I always tend to think that it's very well looked at by students and by youngsters going on the labor market to see what their prospects are. And this might be interesting to see whether you can combine things with them.
yeah, I agree. So I'm really not afraid of not having enough data because just within the Eduworks consortium, associated partners already offered us tons of data. It's more like how to connect the data,
Exactly.
how to get out meaningful recommendations, and how to do it in an ethical and legal way.
But I'm pretty sure that Maastricht has a lot of experience, especially in that one.
Are you saying that someone has collected data on people, they're going to hand it over to you, and you're going to analyse it without the people who originally gave the data knowing that that data has been passed on to you and that you are going to analyse it for research purposes in order to... So people who originally gave the data have no idea of what you're doing with that data.
I don't think this will happen. I don't think this will happen. So for instance, there is an organization called Compass. They collected data from high school students about how do they think about their future, grades, how their parents are thinking about their future, so on and so forth. But they also had to sign an agreement with this company that this data is available for research. So,
Just for everyone?
and furthermore, this company is definitely willing to protect this data. So it's not like I give it to you and then feel free to disseminate it all over the world or do whatever you want. So of course, there will be a legal process behind this. So I do not expect us to do whatever we want with this data, but I expect that we will be able to use this data for this reason.
I don't know. Okay, all that I can say is that that wouldn't be possible in our institution.
But there are some very interesting ways of doing it. So I was talking to other colleagues, it's not here anymore, but for instance, I think at KPN in the Netherlands, they have a so-called data cave. So there is a sort of legal body. You take your data, you bring it to the cave. There, this legal person, you give it to this legal person. The legal person matches your data with other data and give it back to you. And you don't have to deal with names and matching data sets. And it seems it's working. It's a model which works. It's accepted, legally protected.
Yeah,
So
but
there
there
are
is a difference between something being legal and something being ethical.
Definitely. That's very good. Yes.
So how I imagine this is a sort of expert system which gathers information, processes it, and then fits it back into the organizations or the students possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you write papers on this? Because I've seen papers from sort of the business or management, so that's I think the underlying idea that there will be papers describing the process and the outcomes of the process, or how should I imagine the paper?
Predictive models. You can,
Okay, so the elements
you
of
can
it.
run experiments.
Okay.
You can give this information to group A. You do not give this information to group B.
Okay, I see.
So there are a number of.
So each of those pieces.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your attention.